Preseason number one and the favorite to win it all has not looked the part most of 2024, but they did on this night in Atlanta. Georgia is your SEC champion. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Best discussion, debate, and analysis based on your participation. Please like the video and subscribe. Leave your comments down below. Georgia outlasts another opponent 8 overtimes against rival Georgia Tech last weekend. A mere 1 overtime this time around as they dispose of Texas 19-16 to get the season sweep. Of course, the Bulldogs won in Austin in much easier fashion, 30-15. Speaking of which, that Texas team on that night could not convert on its first 10 third down conversion tries, only 2 of 15 on the night. That was one of the big narratives coming out of Austin as Georgia won the first matchup by 15. No Kelvin Banks, one of the best offensive linemen in all of college football, out for Texas. And one of the big reasons why the Longhorns have had a successful season and were the number one seed in this championship game. That was the first offensive line start missed by Texas this season. When you keep the offensive line healthy, you definitely have a shot. Matthew Golden, first drive of the ball game, broke up an would-be Georgia interception. Golden did his best work actually catching the football on this night. He was the best wide receiver on the field. 6 catches for $162 for Texas as the Longhorns moved the ball at will in the first half all over the place. Dalen Everett had a deflected interception, though, for Georgia. He had 2 turnovers caused in the first meeting in Austin, and Everett was in the middle of a ton of action tonight for the Georgia Bulldogs, both good and bad. On this one against Isaiah Bond, he forced the interception, made a great play on the deflection, but Georgia had to punt it right away, and that was the Bulldogs' first half on offense. Again, Matthew Golden with a tremendous 53-yard catch as he just leaped out of his socks to catch one down the right sideline that led to a Burt Auburn field goal, 3-0 at that point. Texas with another field goal to make it 6-0. 7.5 minutes left in the second quarter. The Georgia offense finally got moving a bit. Carson Beck, 7 of 13 on the day. Although Arian Smith could have kept the drive going, they were in field goal range. And Arian Smith, as pointed out by Kirk Herbstreit a number of times during the broadcast, it's a mystery that a wide receiver with his kind of talent, his kind of speed, one of the fastest players in college football, has all sorts of difficulty catching the ball. That's been an issue with Georgia wide receivers as they lead the nation in dropped passes. And Arian Smith in particular, jumping for the football like he's an 8-year-old in the backyard. Remember back when you used to try to catch the ball like this all the time? Jumping for the football when the ball's right at his chest is just an odd thing to watch. Smith with a drop. That forced a Georgia field goal to make it 6-3. Dan Jackson hits as hard as just about anyone in college football, laid the wood on a Silas Bolden at the Georgia 25, but Bolden held on for the first down. But a false start on a made kick by Auburn moved it back. He missed the second try, and so that penalty really hurt Texas, as did many others, as they had 8 on the first half and 11 for the game. Still 6-3 the ball game, and the 2 misses again by Auburn would prove costly. Georgia led in offense, total offense in the first half, 260-54. Georgia wide receiver Arian Smith, I've got it one more time, dropped another pass on a key situation in the first half as that Georgia was driving, as he jumped for the football once again in a ball that hit him right between the numbers. 1 play left in the first half. Georgia was on the fringe of field goal range, but they got knocked back based on penalties. Carson Beck tried to gun for the end zone on the Hail Mary, but he was blindsided by Trey Moore. The ball bounced out on the strip sack. Texas almost took it all the way back for 6 on the final play of the first half, but more importantly, Beck knocked out of the game. He would not return except for one key play. Sark, did you see the halftime interview with Lauren Rutledge? She was shaken, for one thing, because her one question was about penalties and cleaning up the penalties. And Sark responded by not taking accountability for his team's penalties, but basically saying it would be great if they actually called a holding penalty on Georgia. And then she was completely flustered, didn't even thank him for the interview, and just said, let's go over to Holly Rowe. But Sark was definitely pissed about the discrepancy in penalties called in the first half. Let's get to the second half. Texas dominated the first half, 260-54, only led 6-3 though. So the thought process at this point, and you've watched as much football basically as I have, is that when there's a situation where one team dominates but did not take advantage, okay, will they continue to be the dominant team and they're just going to break it open in the second half because they're the better team? Or did they miss their chances? And we know the answer to that question on this night. Gunnar Stockton had to come in for Carson Beck. He acquitted himself well, made one huge error in going 12 of 16 for 71 yards, touchdown drive right out of the gate as Georgia was kind of pumped up by the quarterback change, and the crowd, which was almost entirely red and black, certainly got behind Gunnar Stockton in the Georgia offense as they went up 10-6. Next Texas drive, they were in scoring zone with 5 minutes left in the red zone in the third quarter, but Jalen Walker and Damon Wilson combined on a sack to stop the drive, and Auburn missed the field goal. DeAndre Moore, though, on the next Texas drive, 41-yard touchdown on the slant as he made the safety whiff, tied the game at 13 at this point. The Georgia punter, one of the best in the nation, Brett Thorson, out at halftime. Georgia was punting. So this sequence right here was where Georgia, it appeared, was taking control of the game and would win the football game. Georgia punting at its own 30, tie game at 13. They faked the punt. And Drew Bobo, the offensive coordinator and former Georgia quarterback, Mike Bobo's son, made an impressive play. He handled the snap. He actually looked around, surveyed the field, took the snap on the fake punt as the up man, and then perfectly timed pitch to Arian Smith, who ran it for the first down, and Georgia was off and running at that point. So big gamble by Kirby Smart. Of course, in that same stadium, in that same game, he's made some mistakes, and in national championship showdowns with Alabama in that same stadium as well. So Georgia takes it down the field from there. You add Nate Frazier with a big night, 6 carries, 51 yards, and also Trevor Etienne. We did not know if he would be able to suit up and play. Rib injury did not keep him out, and he had a big night. It was the Frazier-Etienne series on this particular drive that would prove decisive. 16-13 with a field goal as Texas batted down a Gunnar Stockton pass inside the 5-yard line that could have been a touchdown as there was a wide open Oscar Delp on the left side of the field. But again, batted ball inside the 5. I usually like to give credit on those, but I couldn't figure out or determine who patted that pass down with 4 minutes left to play. So 16-13 ball game, and this looked like the play that would end it. Sack on Quinn Ewers, and then the next play on a 3rd and 18, Dalen Everett. We said he was in the middle of everything on this night, both getting burned, pass interference calls, but also coming up with big plays. Another interception by Everett. So he picks it off, sets up Georgia in great shape to run the clock out, milk the clock, finish the game off, maybe score a touchdown to ice it, but take the time off needed. But Gunnar Stockton gets rushed, tries to throw the ball away. That's the only thing I could think of because nobody was in the vicinity, did not have enough arm strength to get it out of bounds. Threw the pick to Jahdae Barron for the interception. If he would have received a block, who knows, he might have been gone. But good play by the backup Georgia tight end to get over there and force him out of bounds and get the tackle at 2.5 minutes left to play. So Texas has the football about their own 35-yard line. Down 3, 2.5 minutes left. They go down the field. They get to midfield. They were a bit risky in going for a 4th and 2, but they get it. Quinn Ewers, an excellent pass, despite the, seems like a short throw on a 4th and 2, but my goodness, he found Moore, who ran a tremendous route as he went inside, lost his man, got to the outside, but it had to be in there on a rope. And so they convert the 4th and 2. That sets up the Auburn field goal as time expired. Well, there was about 15 seconds left in the game. So Auburn clutch after missing twice. 16 all. We go to overtime. Georgia didn't risk throwing the ball down the field. We go to overtime, folks. KJ Bolden, open field tackle. Don't overlook these kind of plays. Bolden with an open field tackle on Quintrevian Weister, who has been the bell cow for Texas football. He had a career high in yardage 2 weeks ago against, I believe that would have been Florida, about 180 yards. And then the next week, he trumped it with a bigger game against Kentucky. He had 59 carries in 2 games coming in, had another 19 against Georgia, but not near the success. 19 carries for 51 yards, but he gets the reception there. But again, Bolden's tackle in the open field kept Texas out of the end zone, so they kicked the field goal to go up 19-16. Oscar Delp on Georgia's possession makes 2 key receptions, and then Gunnar Stockton gets completely annihilated by Andrew Makuba, the former Clemson safety, not targeting, but a vicious hit, clean hit, knocks Stockton out of the game, knocks his helmet off. He's got to leave the game. Carson Beck comes in, his shoulder hanging, and Georgia just went to old-style Georgia football. They lined up in a traditional I formation, quarterback under center. Carson Beck runs the off-tackle play to the left side, was beautifully, perfectly blocked. Trevor Etienne into the end zone for the touchdown. 16 carries, 94 yards for Etienne and the game winner. Georgia wins 19-13. Bulldogs get a top 4 seed. They get a bye. They should be the number 2 seed. If Oregon wins, definitely will be the number 2 seed. If Penn State wins, does Georgia, matched up against a 12-1 Penn State team, possibly get the nod? Is that it's feasible to a certain extent in terms of lining up the resumes? But if you look at Penn State, already number 3 in the country, if they knock off number 1 and Georgia's down at 5, knocking off number 2, it only makes sense that Georgia would sit at number 2, and Penn State would also elevate past Georgia, or not past them, but stay in front of Georgia at number 1. So the Bulldogs, almost assuredly the number 2 seed. And what about Texas, though? I got to think they're number 5 here at 11-2, losing an SEC championship game in overtime. More wins than Ohio State. Of course, Ohio State with a horrible loss to end the season. And then even if Penn State loses, I got to think the Georgia loss, or the Texas loss to Georgia, is going to be more formidable. It just shakes out as looking like Texas would stay ahead of Penn State because they lost about as close as you could. And I think it's a narrow path for Penn State to get that number 5 seed ahead of Texas. So Texas probably the 5, but we will see it from there. Of course, the matchup against Notre Dame in terms of comparing Notre Dame against Texas after the loss. But this is such a quality loss. This is basically better than most wins. 90-some% of the wins across the country when you lose to Georgia in overtime. All right, those are my thoughts. Texas should be the 5 seed and Georgia the 2. I don't see any other scenario that would justify, to me, any other seeding for those 2 SEC teams. All right, classic from Atlanta as Georgia survives. Your thoughts down below. Join us for the big watch party on Sunday. We join you for the call-in show as we take in the final college football playoff rankings, digest it all, and then hear from you right here at the Voice of College Football.